it's become my custom to share on Christmas morning an essay or a passage from a book about the meaning of Christmas. And so this morning's passage comes from a theologian, a pastor named Brian McLaren. And he writes, "Do you remember how the whole biblical story begins in Genesis, those first words? Right? In the beginning. And do you remember what was the first thing spoken into being? Let there be light." Yeah. On Christmas, we celebrate new beginnings, and we celebrate this gift of light. Brian writes, "A new day begins with sunrise, a new year with the lengthening of days. A new life begins with infant eyes taking in their first view of a world bathed in light. And a new era in human history began when God's light came shining into our world through Jesus." The fourth gospel tells us that what came into being through Jesus was not merely religion or a new religion or a new theology or a new set of principles and teachings. Right? Jesus is not a guru. Although we did get these things from Jesus: new teachings, new religion, new theology. But the real point of it all, according to the author John, was life, vitality, and aliveness. That Jesus came that we might have life and have it abundantly. And now that Jesus has come, that radiant aliveness is here to enlighten people everywhere. And Brian goes on to say, some people, though, don't yet see it. Some don't want to see the light. They've got some shady plans that they want to preserve under cover in the darkness. They don't welcome the light because transparency exposes their plans and deeds for what they are, not of God. And so they prefer darkness. But others welcome the light. They receive it as a gift, and in that receiving, they let God's holy, radiant aliveness into themselves and into the world. And so then they become portals of that light to reflect it back into the world. What do we mean when we say Jesus is the light? Well, just as a glow on the eastern horizon tells us that a long night is finally coming to an end, Jesus' birth signals the beginning of the end of the dark nights of fear, hostility, violence, and greed that has descended on our world. Jesus' birth signals the start of a new day, a new way, a new understanding of what it means to be alive and live and act in the world. I recently came across a little story, a little video. I might post it on our Facebook page, from Rick Steves, the PBS Travels with Rick Steves. And he told this story about a pastor at the church, the Lutheran church in Bethlehem, the original Bethlehem, not the one up in the Poconos. He tells the story of a friendship that he had with the pastor of that church. And it's called Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem. And this Reverend Dr. Mitri Rahab. And Mitri tells the story, Rick tells Mitri's story, about a time, not in this current violence that just occurred in Israel, but a past one, where in the course of uprising and violence that occurs in Palestine, that the stained glass windows in the chapel, the school chapel that this church runs, all got burst, all shattered. And the people of that church and Reverend Mitri could have seen that as, you know, the sadness and violence that it is, that war brings to us, that things break and cannot be mended sometimes. And he could have responded, they could have responded with fear, hostility, violence back at the Israelis who were the cause of their beautiful chapel windows shattering. But instead, what Mitri did was they gathered up all those fragments of stained glass and they formed Christmas ornaments with them. And so those broken fragments of glass became the ornaments that decorated their Christmas tree that year, creating beauty out of brokenness, creating new ways for light to shine through, bringing us closer to God. And that's what Jesus as the light does for us. Coming into those places in our lives that are broken and shattered and creating something new and beautiful for the light to shine, the light that's God's light in each of us that we get to reflect into the world. And while I'm very glad that our beautiful stained glass has not, actually it's been restored, hasn't it? It's about 10 years now. You know, this is the way the light gets in. This is the way the light gets into this world. And that's our choice, how to see and respond to the things in our lives that could lead us away from God, away from each other, or to move into God's light, to be that reflection of God's life and healing and wholeness for all. Amen.